Welcome back. We're on the ACORD Loma Systems Forum show floor, and I'm pleased to present to you my two guests. I have to my right Bill Smith, who in fact was one of the founders of ACORD. We wouldn't all be here today if it wasn't for this man right here. He was CIO of Fireman's Fund. And in fact, I think the first volunteer executive director of ACORD, I think he had my job back there in 1969, 1970. And we also have Palin. When I came to work for ACORD in '77, I did a lot of work in the California Association. And Paul, I think you were involved with the committee in a very significant way. You were chair of the committee.
I was chair of the committee, yes.
And so I just want to roll the clock back for our viewers now, because we don't get this opportunity very often. And let's begin in the 60s, Bill. Where did this whole notion come up with for an ACORD?
All of it happened in 1965.
65.
I was vice president of Fireman Fund Information Systems.
Right.
And the company wanted a direct bill system, which was very new then. So we put the direct bill system together, and I did a good job on a direct bill system, but it didn't work. The agents weren't responding. And all I knew, agents were out there, and that's where the business came from. So I went to the California Association and got 6 or 8 agents in California. Paul's was one of them. And went around and began to learn what happens in an agency. And I couldn't believe what I found. This is unreal. I mean, there's no way.
Duplication of effort and all that?
No way it's going to work. I mean, I came from the company, I designed company systems, I knew what the transaction flow was and all that. And so we had these six agencies. And we had a committee with the California Association supported from day one. Jim Norris was the president, and he supported the effort. And we just went in trying to learn what to do with this thing. And then we were making progress. People were beginning to respond. I mean, they didn't know how they're going to do it, but the agencies were always cooperative. I mean, they want something done about this problem. And I was a company representative, and we didn't have many company participants in it. But as this thing started to materialize, we got in 1967, 68, the president of the then NAIA, Red Nelson, heard about this, and he came to Fireman's Fund, and we explained what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish, and he bought it. And they said, I'll tell you what, we're having a conference, an NAIA conference in Honolulu. Would you and your wife like to come?
Of course, you said yes. We'll go to Honolulu, right?
A weekend in Honolulu, you know, and Woody Malone, who was the vice president of marketing, he and his wife, we were going to spend the weekend in Honolulu and have a good time. Anyhow, I met with the NAI Executive Committee on Saturday morning and made my pitch, and they embraced it. And they said, what's it take to do this, you know? And I said, I have any idea what it would take it on a national basis. Well, how much would it cost? And I said, $50,000. I thought that would stop it. No way.
Really?
They agreed to do it. They said, well, let's proceed with this thing, get it going. So they asked me to come back on Monday to the full convention and make a presentation of this. And I turned to Woody and said, we can't do this with a company. This commits the company to something that's gargantuan. I mean, $50,000 is going to be small peanuts. Let's do it. That started it.
But you know, you're talking about the NAIA, and that was the national organization at the time.
That's right.
So that was like 67. But Paul, didn't the California Association have some kind of an ACORD task force or an agency company task force before then as well?
Before that.
Before that, actually.
That's what I said. This committee was set in California. It was all agents. Like we have 5 agencies in California. We worked with them first. They made the visits there to find out how insurance agents do transactions.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the California Association and what they were doing, Paul.
California literally wanted ACORD, and they funded a full committee to meet once a month, look at processes, look at forms, this sort of thing. I served on the committee for 4 years, and then I was chosen to be its chairman. And we then expanded the effort by having a local rep from every local not on the committee, but could come to the committee, could bring in ideas, could work on it, and so forth.
Agents.
And so all of a sudden we had like 50 people working, all volunteers, all looking towards this thing, with the state association pushing it. And ACORD was formed, and we started pushing ACORD.
What were some of the deliverables you were thinking about, though? I mean, Bill mentioned direct bill from Fireman's Fund, and he went back to visit agents. Were you focused on specific standards of some kind? I mean,
Well, yes,
because
actually,
the claim forms came out in 1970 or something like that.
yes. Actually, what happened was the first form that really came out was a certificate of insurance.
Certificate.
Now,
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody
where
ever
you
sends-
can do a standard now in about 6 months, have it published and ready,
Took you 6 years? Wow.
took us 3.5 years to
3.5
get
years.
concurrence.
But the claim form was the bell cow. Nobody ever sent a claim form back. So that was a natural.
Originally, there was a claim stamp. Remember that rubber stamp we
Yes,
had?
the ACORD
There
stamp.
was the stamp you'd put on top of a claim. So certificate was first, right? What came after that? Was that the claim forms came after
Claim
that, right?
forms came out. Then we started working on the personal lines and then the commercial lines. Marine insurance was never attempted. And the interesting thing is everything was being done on paper. And so it was a paper society.
Right.
This was our insight to the problem in the paper and the agency, and the information you've got to get back to the companies. I was working on a direct bill system,
Right.
and trying to find out why this didn't work. But it was an eye opener. You couldn't believe what was there. Because the company side, you can control what the procedure is going to be.
Exactly.
And
So it all started with forms, but I mean, we transitioned from forms to electronic and computers, and you were both of you in the middle of all of that.
Yes.
No, I had an IBM 780, a whole room full of gear, which is a fraction of what I got in my pocket. And that was, we had to make a lot of changes to do some of these things, but it was something you could control. The agents had all kinds of problems because they had vendors and then they had various levels of operation. But back to where we had to make this presentation to the National Association, and this has been reading the ACORD documentation the first time around. I went back to the hotel and told my wife, this weekend in Honolulu is in trouble. So we got an upright typewriter from the hotel, and amongst all the cocktail parties and everything, we put the presentation together and made the presentation.
We still do things like that today, you know. Cocktail parties and putting presentation. It still works today.
But it worked, and the conference bought the program.
That's great.
And said, when are you going to get started?
Yeah.
And right as a result of that, we got 5 nominee agents from national. Chuck Little, New York, Bob Newell, Minnesota.
Know them? Yes.
And
As a matter of fact,
all these
Bill,
other-
you have a present for Greg.
What are you looking for?
He actually has brought you a picture
He brought me a picture.
picture
Where's my briefcase?
from the NAI meeting
somebody really,
showing all of the pictures.
That's the NAI picture. Is that from Honolulu or is that the Miami
that was
picture?
1970. This was 69.
That was the Miami picture, right?
Yeah,
right. I've seen that
69.
picture.
That was the beginning of the committee.
Yeah, we'll put that up so people
And we
can
got
see
these
it.
5 agencies around the country,
Right.
and begin to go visit companies.
Yeah.
And there was the big
Great.
eye opener.
Terrific.
Bill, appreciate your effort, but we have our own system, you know, and we've got a good agency interface system. We're going to take care of that. And we're still waiting.
Okay, now.
And see, what happened was the agents, and this is what the companies didn't realize, the agents were really pushing for this because they wanted one source for information
Right.
that could just send everywhere. And that's why we started with forums. But pretty soon those forums became a standard. And they got pushed on the companies. If anything, that's when companies started to really join ACORD because they were forced into it. Their agency plant was saying, you're either going to accept this or we're not going to do business.
So that's why the natural progression to standards was a natural. It was waiting to happen. All I had to do was do it.
Yeah. But it was driven by the customers. It
Yeah,
was driven
it
by
was
the
driven-
agents.
driven by the ag-
And a company's willing to go along with it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And then as we progressed along, the association asked me if we could come up with some sort of matrix to automate agencies and automate this entire paper
Right.
mess.
Right.
And I believe you were there when we did that presentation called Automation West in Los Angeles.
That was
Might have been, yeah.
that's where we tried to clarify.
Yeah.
You know, we had AFI
Yes.
all function all function system.
I remember that.
And that was the same concept of the pass-through.
It's a binder about this big, as a matter of
That's
fact.
right.
I remember that.
Yep.
That was
Yep.
the first insight to pass-through transactions.
Right.
Get the data elements.
Right.
And we had it all lined out. The first document that I gave to the association at a board meeting was a piece of butcher paper, 10 feet long, with this diagram.
Of how it should work.
Oh, what was that?
How
What
it starts with
what
the
you had to
customer and
deal with?
what happens if you do this, this happens,
Yeah.
and so forth. And the association just jumped on that and said, we've got to do it. Got to get it done.
Let me roll the clock forward because we're getting short on
Sure.
time here. It's been 35, 36 years that ACORD has been doing what it's been doing, in large part because of your efforts back in the 70s. I know you keep in touch with me periodically, and I talk to you from time to time. In your own words, just you don't have to glamorize my role here, okay? But for you, Paul, as you look at ACORD today and the show here and the 2,600 people in the audience, what's your reaction as you think back to the future?
Wow. That's all you can say.
Incredible, huh?
Incredible, yes.
Well, since you took the helm, you put it in gear, been going ever since. And we're making good progress.
Yeah, well, I don't know how to drive a stick shift. I usually do automatic, you know, but...
Well, I'll put it this way. When Mr. Merriman was stepping down and they were looking for a replacement, Bill and I made a good choice.
you made a good choice, that's right.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, you know, that's a good way to leave, they made a good choice in Greg Macy back in 1994. Paul, Bill, thanks so much for being here with me. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks a lot for making ACORD.
You bet.